What is up guys, Dzeeff here. In today's Konami sponsored video, I wanted to talk about the new Scareclaw archetype as well as Visa Starfrost. These cards all debut in Dimension Force, releasing in a couple weeks on the TCG, and they're getting more support in the future as well. Make sure to stay tuned later on this week because I will actually be opening up an early box of Dimension Force on the channel. For now though, let's talk about Starfrost and the Scareclaw archetype. So Starfrost is actually not technically part of the archetype, even though it is featured in many of the Scareclaw card artworks, and it's a card that can be used not only in Scareclaw but also just as a generically good tuner monster that you can special summon right from your hand. So Starfrost is a level 6 light warrior tuner effect monster with 2100 attack and 1500 defense. It says if this card is in your hand, you can target one monster you control with a different type and attribute than this card, so not a warrior or a light monster, destroy that monster, and if you do, special summon this card. You can only use this effect of Starfrost once per turn. When this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can make this card gain attack equal to half the original attack or defense of that monster, whichever is higher, your choice if tied. So Starfrost is a very interesting card, not only for this archetype, but also just because it's a very easily summonable level 6 tuner monster, which we don't see a lot of in Yu-Gi-Oh! While the requirement to destroy one of your own monsters to special summon this card might initially look like a downside, that actually might be one of the best parts about Starfrost. There are plenty of monsters out there that have trigger effects when they are destroyed, and Starfrost helps you set those up a lot more consistently. Moving on to the Scareclaw cards, the main gimmick of their monsters is that you can special summon them from your hand to your main monster zone adjacent to a Scareclaw monster you control or in its column. That means if you have a handful of a bunch of these, you can special summon them all right in a row, which makes link summoning very easy, as well as synchro summons and Xyz summons too. For example, Scareclaw Rhyhart has that special summon effect, but also it says if this card is normal or special summoned, you can add one Scareclaw spell or trap from your deck to your hand. Then if 3 or more defense position monsters are on the field, you can draw one card. You can only use this effect of this card once per turn. This is one of your best starter cards in Scareclaw because it can search a spell or trap card, but it's also a really good extender as well. And if you control 3 defense position monsters when you use this effect, you get to draw one card, which is a really good swing and card advantage. All of your other main deck Scareclaw monsters are level 3, and they give bonus abilities to your Scareclaw monster in an extra monster zone. For example, Astra will let your Scareclaw monster in the extra monster zone be able to attack multiple times, up to the number of differently named defense position Scareclaw monsters you control. Scareclaw Balone gives your monster piercing battle damage, which can be pretty nice in a pinch, and Scareclaw Acro gives your monster a boost in attack points. I think it's important to remember here that while these cards do have boosting effects for the Scareclaw monster in your extra monster zone, they're also just really easily summonable monsters that you can use for all types of extra deck summons. But they do have a boss monster in this set, so this is what you are trying to summon using these cards. It's also what you're trying to boost with their on-field effects. Let's take a look at Scareclaw Tryhart. This is a Link 3 Dark Beast Warrior effect monster with 3000 attack, and all 3 of the arrows are pointed downward. It takes any 3 effect monsters to bring out tiers, so you do not need to actually use Scareclaws to bring it out, but you'll probably want to have at least one Scareclaw in rotation to truly take advantage of its effect. Let's take a look at what it does. Must be link summoned, all face-up monsters on the field are changed to defense position, unaffected by the activated effects of defense position monsters. Once per turn, if this card is in the extra monster zone, you can target one level 3 Scareclaw monster in your graveyard, special summon it, and if you do, add one Scareclaw monster from your deck to your hand. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of this turn except Scareclaw monsters. So a few things to note here. Like I said, you don't really need to make this card using Scareclaws, but you'll want at least one Scareclaw monster in your graveyard to actually use its ability. While on the field, Tryhart is pretty threatening. It has that sort of lose one turn effect that protects itself, but also every single turn its effect resolves, you're getting a free special summon and a free add from your deck. And if you add a Rhyhart from your deck, that can be used to then add another card to your hand, so this card is great at getting you a lot of card advantage. Moving on to the spell and trap cards though, we have some very important cards, starting off with their field spell, Primitive Planet Rhyphobia. This is a new field spell that says when this card is activated, you can add one Scareclaw monster or one Starfrost from your deck to your hand. Monsters your opponent controls lose 100 attack and defense for each defense position monster on the field. If 3 or more defense position monsters are on the field, you can target one card your opponent controls, destroy it. Not only do you get to add a card to your hand for free when you activate it, but also if you control 3 or more defense position monsters, you get to pop a card for free as well. And as we've now seen, it's pretty easy to get 3 monsters on the field that are in defense position because all of the Scareclaw monsters can just special summon themselves from your hand. So this card is a fantastic field spell for this archetype, and it's one of the biggest reasons to play Scareclaws. Scareclaw Arrival is sort of like a return of the Dragon Lords for this archetype. It not only has a revival effect for a Scareclaw monster or Starfrost, but also it has a graveyard protection effect. So if a Scareclaw Link monster or monsters you control would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. This card helps you recover a little bit in the mid game, and also it helps you protect your big extra deck monster, so I think most people are going to play 3 copies in their Scareclaw deck. Scareclaw Splash is a continuous trap card that says, once per turn you can target 1 Scareclaw monster or Starfrost you control. It can attack while in face-up defense position this turn. If it does, apply its attack or defense, whichever is higher, for damage calculation. So this is a great way to actually do some damage with your level 3 Scareclaw monsters, because all of them have 0 attack, but they have a high defense stat. This card also says when your opponent activates a card or effect while you control a Scareclaw monster in the extra monster zone, you can send this face-up card to the graveyard to negate that effect. If you already have access to the field spell, this is going to be your most common search target for the Reinhardt effect. It's definitely one of the best cards in the deck, and it's your easiest way to interrupt the opponent. Finally, we have Scareclaw Alternative, a very interesting normal trap card with a big payoff, but also a big cost. This card requires you to tribute 3 Scareclaw monsters, but if you do, for the rest of this turn, your opponent can only special summon monsters in defense position. While that cost is pretty big, do remember that this card is very searchable because you can add it with Reinhardt, and also remember that it cuts your opponent off of Link summoning entirely, which is obviously very good in certain matchups. Also, during your turn, you can banish this card from your graveyard, inflict 100 damage to your opponent for each defense position monster on the field. You can only use this effect of Alternative once per turn. So that is both players' field here, which means if you have a bunch of Scareclaws in defense mode, but also if you switched a bunch of cards your opponent controls to defense mode with the Tryhard effect, you can do a fair amount of damage with Alternative. The Scareclaw archetype is all about special summoning cards, setting up a big extra deck monster, and also having a very good trap card that can control the board. I hope you guys enjoyed the introduction to this archetype, and make sure to stick around later on this week for that early box opening of Dimension Force. I'll see you guys later. Thanks so much for watching though. Goodbye.